Not every muscle car from the 1960s became a legend. Some were badge-engineered frauds. Others got strangled by penny-pinching accountants. A few just flat-out lied about what they were. Today, we're counting down the 12 worst muscle cars out of the 1960s. The pretenders, the disasters, and the beautiful failures that couldn't cash the checks their styling wrote. Buckle up. Number 12, 1967 Oldsmobile Cutlass 442 Turnpike Cruiser. Let's start with a muscle car that committed the ultimate sin of the era. It chose comfort over fury. The 1967 Oldsmobile Cutlass 442 was supposed to be a street warrior, a legitimate contender in the horsepower wars that defined the decade. But when customers ordered the Turnpike Cruiser package with the L66 engine option, they got something nobody asked for. A neutered muscle car designed for highway cruising instead of stoplight domination. The Turnpike Cruiser came with a two-barrel version of Oldsmobile's 400 cubic inch V8, rated at just 300 horsepower instead of the standard 4 barrels 350 worse. Yet this economy-minded setup was saddled with a 2.56 rear axle ratio instead of the aggressive 3.42 gears that real 442s wore. The result was predictable and painful. Quarter-mile times ballooned to over 16 seconds. Embarrassing numbers when a base model Plymouth Belvedere could run low 14 seconds. 0 to 60 miles per hour took nearly 9 seconds, making this 442 slower than many six-cylinder family sedans from the same era. The Cutlass still looked the part. Its aggressive stance, hood scoops, and dual exhaust promised performance that the drivetrain couldn't deliver. Buyers who wanted a comfortable highway cruiser got exactly that. But they paid muscle car prices for station wagon performance. The irony was cruel. Oldsmobile had built one of the decade's most balanced muscle cars, then offered an option package that stripped away everything that made it special. The 442 name stood for 4-barrel carburetor, 4-speed transmission, and dual exhausts, the holy trinity of muscle car credibility. The Turnpike Cruiser made a mockery of that legacy by swapping performance for fuel economy. Today, these long-legged 442s are oddities in the collector market. They represent what happens when marketing departments try to have it both ways. When compromise kills character, the 1960s were about excess, aggression, and raw speed. This Oldsmobile chose fuel economy and cruise control instead, and history hasn't been kind to that decision. Number 11, 1969 AMC Rambler Rogue. American Motors Corporation spent the 1960s trying desperately to prove it belonged in the muscle car game. The 1969 Rambler Rogue was their most tragic attempt, a car that wore performance stripes without earning them. While AMC did build the legendary SC/Rambler with its potent 390 cubic inch V8, the standard Rogue trim was something far less impressive. The Rogue came with AMC's 290 cubic inch V8, available in 2-barrel form, making 200 horsepower, or 4-barrel specification, producing 225 horsepower against AMC's own SC/Rambler that could crack 14-second quarter miles with its 390 engine. The base Rogue was painfully slow. Quarter-mile times hovered around 17 to 18 seconds. And 0 to 60 took over 10 seconds even with the 4-barrel motor. This wasn't muscle car performance, it was embarrassment with racing stripes. But the real tragedy was how hard AMC tried to sell the illusion. The Rogue featured bold graphics, bucket seats, and a floor-mounted shifter. The advertising promised excitement and youth appeal. Magazine ads showed the car alongside genuine muscle machines. As if the Rogue belonged in that conversation, it didn't. Not even close. While the SC/Rambler delivered legitimate performance, the standard Rogue was just AMC selling stripes without the substance to back them up. The handling was sloppy, the brakes were inadequate, and the interior felt cheap even by 1960s standards. AMC's compact platform couldn't handle the stress of performance driving. Even with the modest power output, the suspension would bottom out over bumps. The steering felt vague and disconnected, and the whole car shuddered at highway speeds. Engineers had tried to turn an economy car into a performance machine without addressing any of the fundamental platform limitations. The Rambler name itself became part of the problem. While Ford had Mustangs and Chevrolet had Camaros, AMC was still selling Ramblers, a brand associated with sensible transportation for conservative buyers who counted their pennies. Slapping aggressive styling on a car that shared its architecture with grocery getters fooled nobody. Young buyers saw through the marketing immediately. The Rogue sold poorly to budget-conscious customers who didn't care about performance, while enthusiasts bought the rare SC/Rambler models or went to other manufacturers entirely. Today, the Rambler Rogue is remembered as a symbol of AMC's struggles during the muscle car era. It represents ambition without resources, marketing without substance. While other manufacturers were building genuine performance machines, American Motors was painting racing stripes on economy cars and hoping nobody would notice the difference. Number 10, 1968 Plymouth Roadrunner with a 2.76 rear axle. The Plymouth Roadrunner was supposed to be the blue-collar muscle car hero, stripped down, powerful, and affordable. The 1968 model year introduced this legendary nameplate with a brilliant formula: big engine, minimal options, low price. But Plymouth made one catastrophic mistake. They offered an optional 2.76 rear axle ratio for customers who wanted better fuel economy on long highway drives. Installing that economy gear destroyed everything the Roadrunner stood for. The standard car came with Chrysler's 383 cubic inch V8, rated at 335 horsepower, backed by a 3.23 rear axle that delivered respectable performance. But swap in those 2.76 gears, and suddenly your Roadrunner couldn't catch a Belvedere sedan. Quarter-mile times dropped from the mid-14s into the high 15s. Off-the-line acceleration became sluggish and disappointing. The big block would lug and labor at low speeds, robbing the car of the aggressive personality that made the Roadrunner famous. The visual identity made the letdown even worse. The Roadrunner featured cartoon graphics, a horn that mimicked the Looney Tunes character, and styling that screamed street racer. The disconnect between appearance and performance was jarring. Imagine pulling up to a stoplight, hearing that distinctive beep-beep horn, and then watching the car crawl away like it was towing a boat. Plymouth's engineers knew this configuration was wrong. Internal memos from the era show heated debates about whether to even offer the economy axle option. The accountants won that argument, and the Roadrunner's reputation suffered. Fortunately, most buyers ordered the standard gear ratio, but enough economy-spec Roadrunners left dealerships to become rolling punchlines at drag strips across America. The irony cuts deep. Plymouth created the Roadrunner to be an affordable muscle car that anyone could take racing on Saturday night. The 2.76 axle option transformed it into something worse than the luxury cruisers it was designed to compete against. Those cars at least made no pretense about their mission. The economy-geared Roadrunner pretended to be something it wasn't, and muscle car enthusiasts have long memories about that kind of betrayal. Today, these long-legged Roadrunners are avoided by collectors who understand that not every car wearing the right badge delivers the right experience. Number 9, 1968-69 Ford Torino GT with the 302. Ford's Torino replaced the legendary Fairlane name in 1968, promising a new era of intermediate performance. The GT package looked aggressive with its hideaway headlights, hood scoops, and sporty interior. But if you ordered the base 302 cubic inch V8 with the 2-barrel carburetor, you got a car that wore muscle car clothes without the muscle to fill them. The 302 2-barrel made just 210 horsepower, barely adequate numbers for a car weighing over 3,300 pounds. Quarter-mile times languished in the high 16s, embarrassing for anything wearing GT badges. 0 to 60 took over 9 seconds, and top speed was nothing to write home about. Worse yet, Ford typically paired this engine with economy-minded rear axle ratios and automatic transmissions that further dulled any performance edge. The Torino GT's big body made the power deficit even more obvious. This wasn't a lightweight pony car that could get by on modest horsepower. It was a full-size intermediate that needed serious cubic inches to move with any authority. The 302 struggled to motivate all that mass, feeling strained and breathless under hard acceleration. The engine would rev willingly, but delivered little actual thrust, creating a sensory disconnect between sound and fury. Ford knew how to build proper muscle cars. The Torino lineup included legitimate performers like the 428 Cobra Jet and the Boss 302, but offering the base 302 and GT trim created confusion in the marketplace. Was this a performance car or a dressed-up family hauler? The answer depended entirely on which options you checked, and buyers who chose wrong ended up with cars that promised excitement but delivered tedium. The handling didn't compensate for the power shortage either. The Torino suspension was tuned for ride comfort rather than cornering ability. The brakes were marginal at best, and the steering was slow and vague. Everything about the driving experience screamed rental car rather than muscle car, making the GT badges feel like false advertising. Magazine reviews of the era politely suggested buyers skip the base engine and opt for at least the 351 or, better yet, the big block options. That was code for the 302 GT is a waste of money. Today, these base-engine Torino GTs are among the least desirable Ford performance cars of the era, reminders that looking fast and being fast are two very different things. Number 8. 1969 Mercury Cyclone spoiler with the 351. Mercury spent the late 1960s desperately trying to establish a performance identity separate from Ford. The 1969 Cyclone spoiler was supposed to be their aerodynamic racing special, complete with a massive rear wing and aggressive front air dam. It looked like it meant business, styled to evoke Mercury's NASCAR dominance. But if you ordered the base 351 cubic inch V8, you got Windsor motor making around 290 horsepower and a body that weighed 3,600 pounds. 290 horsepower might sound adequate, but in Mercury's intermediate platform, it was criminally insufficient. The Cyclone spoiler with the base 351 couldn't break 16 seconds in the quarter mile. 0 to 60 took over 8 seconds. Top speed was barely over 110 miles per hour. These were numbers that would have been disappointing in 1959, let alone the final year of the 1960s. The disconnect between image and reality was almost comical. The Cyclone spoiler featured wild graphics, a huge rear wing that served no aerodynamic purpose at those speeds, and badges that promised performance the powertrain couldn't deliver. Driving one must have felt like wearing a race car driver's uniform to drive a taxi. The styling wrote checks the engine couldn't cash. Mercury's marketing department pushed the Cyclone spoiler as a NASCAR-inspired street machine, leveraging the brand's racing success with drivers like Cale Yarborough to sell road cars. But NASCAR Cyclones ran 429 cubic inch Boss V8s, making well over 500 horsepower. The base street version made barely half that power from a much smaller engine. It was false advertising by implication, and muscle car buyers saw through it immediately. The handling wasn't any better. Despite the aerodynamic add-ons, the base Cyclone spoiler was nose-heavy and prone to understeer. The brakes were marginal, the suspension was soft, and the steering felt disconnected from the road. Push it hard and it would plow through corners like a truck. The front end pushing wide while the rear wing added nothing but weight and wind resistance. Mercury did offer proper big block engines in the Cyclone lineup, including the 428 Cobra Jet that could genuinely perform. But allowing customers to order the spoiler package with the base 351 Windsor created muscle car posers that embarrassed everyone involved. These cars represented everything wrong with badge engineering and option packages gone wild. Today, they're reminders that in the muscle car era, looking fast and being fast were two very different things. Number 7. 1965 Ford Mustang 2+2 with the 200 cubic inch 6-cylinder. The Ford Mustang revolutionized the American automotive industry in 1964 and a half. It created the pony car segment and became an instant cultural phenomenon. But not every Mustang deserved the legend. The 1965 Mustang 2+2 Fastback with the base 200 cubic inch inline-6 engine was a heartbreaker. Stunning looks wrapped around disappointingly mediocre performance. That 200 cubic inch 6-cylinder produced just 120 horsepower. In a car that weighed nearly 2,800 pounds, this created performance that could charitably be described as adequate for merging onto highways. 0 to 60 took over 12 seconds. Quarter mile times were in the high 18. Top speed was barely over 100 miles per hour. These numbers were acceptable in a secretary's commuter car. But in a fastback that looked like it should be racing at Sebring, They were crushingly disappointing. The 2+2 body style made the letdown even more painful. With its sleek roofline and aggressive stance, this fastback looked ready to devour winding mountain roads. But the reality was wheezy acceleration, a top-heavy feeling in corners, and a 4-speed manual transmission that couldn't disguise the lack of power. The engine note was a thrashy buzz instead of a throaty rumble. Everything about the driving experience reminded you that you'd bought the economy version of an icon. Ford's marketing brilliance became a double-edged sword. They sold the Mustang as a personal performance car, using racing imagery and youth-oriented advertising to create desire. But then they offered engine options ranging from that anemic 6-cylinder all the way up to the legendary 289 V8. Buyers who couldn't afford or didn't want the V8 engines found themselves driving cars that looked sporty but drove like rental cars. The 6-cylinder 2+2 sold in decent numbers, mainly to young buyers stretching their budgets or to people who prioritize fuel economy over performance. But at every stoplight and on every on-ramp, these cars reminded their owners what they were missing. The V8 Mustangs weren't even that much more expensive, making the 6-cylinder choice feel like false economy in retrospect. The handling suffered from the engine's limitations too. With barely over 100 horsepower, there was never enough power to overwhelm the rear tires, which sounds like a good thing until you realize it means the car felt slow and unengaging everywhere. The suspension was tuned for comfort rather than sport. The brakes were adequate but uninspiring, and the steering was slow and vague. Every dynamic element of the car reinforced the same message. This Mustang looked better than it drove. Today, 6-cylinder 2+2 Mustangs are among the least desirable variants of the most collectible pony car. They represent missed opportunities and compromised visions. The muscle car era demanded commitment, and ordering a fastback with a 6-cylinder engine was like showing up to a gunfight with a strongly worded letter. Number 6. 1967 Pontiac Firebird Sprint with the overhead cam, 6-cylinder. Pontiac tried something genuinely innovative with the 1967 Firebird Sprint. They installed an overhead cam straight-six engine that featured advanced engineering and genuine high-revving character. The 230 cubic inch OHC Sprint engine produced 215 horsepower and could spin to 5,000 revolutions per minute with ease. It should have been a hit. Instead, it became a lesson in why technical sophistication doesn't always beat good old-fashioned torque. The Sprint was clever and revvy, but America wanted grunt. Quarter-mile times for the Sprint hovered around 16 seconds, which was merely adequate for the era. 0 to 60 took about 8 seconds, which sounds decent until you compare it to Pontiac's own 326 cubic inch V8 that cost less money, made similar power at lower revs, and delivered the kind of low-end torque that American drivers expected. The overhead cam 6 required premium fuel, constant valve adjustments, and a willingness to rev the engine hard just to access its power band. Most American drivers in 1967 weren't interested in shifting at $5,000 and ringing out every revolution. They wanted to mat the throttle and feel instant thrust. Against Pontiac's own lineup, the Sprint made no sense. It felt busy and strained compared to the effortless power delivery of even the base V8 options. The sound never stirred souls like a rumbling 8-cylinder. Instead of a deep, authoritative growl, the OHC6 produced a buzzy, almost industrial noise that sounded more European than American. There was no drama, no theater to the experience. The pricing made the disconnect even worse. The Sprint package cost more than stepping up to a V8 Firebird, creating a situation where buyers paid extra money for a more complex engine that delivered less satisfying performance. It was a solution looking for a problem that didn't exist in the American market. Maintenance became an issue too. The overhead cam design required more frequent valve adjustments than typical pushrod motors. Parts availability was limited since the OHC6 was unique to Pontiac and only used for a few years. Mechanics unfamiliar with the design sometimes struggled to service these engines properly. What seemed like cutting-edge technology in the showroom became a maintenance headache in real-world ownership. Pontiac's marketing tried to position the Sprint as a sophisticated alternative to brute force V8s, appealing to drivers who appreciated European-style engineering. Magazine ads emphasized the technical innovations and high-revving nature. But the target audience was tiny. Most American muscle car buyers in 1967 wanted cubic inches and torque, not overhead cams and high red lines. The Firebird Sprint represents what happens when engineers get clever in a market that rewards simplicity and brute force. It was technically interesting, but commercially irrelevant, an attempt to bring European sophistication to American street racing. The market rejected it decisively, and within a few years, Pontiac abandoned the OHC6 entirely. Today, these sprints are curiosities rather than collectibles. Interesting footnotes in Pontiac's performance history that prove the wrong point at the wrong time. Number 5, 1967-68 Mercury Cougar with the 289 two-barrel. Mercury positioned the Cougar as an upscale alternative to the Mustang, a pony car with luxury pretensions and European-inspired styling. The 1967 and 68 models were gorgeous, featuring hideaway headlights, a distinctive grille, and an interior that felt genuinely premium. But if you ordered the base 289 cubic inch V8 with its two-barrel carburetor, you got grand touring looks with rental car performance. The 289 two-barrel produced just 200 horsepower, adequate for cruising but disappointing for anything resembling spirited driving. In a car that weighed over 3,000 pounds and marketed itself as a performance luxury machine, this power deficit was immediately obvious. Quarter-mile times struggled to crack 17 seconds. 0 to 60 took over 9 seconds. Highway passing maneuvers required planning and patience. The Cougar looked like it should be quick, but the base engine made it merely adequate. Mercury's luxury touches made the performance shortfall even more glaring. The Cougar featured a well-appointed interior, excellent sound insulation, and comfort-oriented suspension tuning. All of this added weight without adding power, creating a car that felt heavy and sluggish despite its sporty appearance. The 289 had to work hard just to move the Cougar's mass, laboring audibly under acceleration and feeling breathless at highway speeds. The pricing created additional frustration. The Cougar cost significantly more than a comparable Mustang, yet the base engine delivered similar or worse performance. Buyers were paying a luxury premium for Mercury's upgraded interior and styling, but getting stuck with the same underpowered small block that barely motivated Ford's lighter pony car. Step up to the optional 302 or better yet the 390 cubic inch V8s, and the Cougar became a genuinely quick machine. But the base engine turned Mercury's flagship into a disappointment. The Cougar's mission created inherent contradictions. It was supposed to be a gentleman's muscle car, blending performance with refinement. But the base 289 delivered neither genuine performance nor the effortless power that true luxury cars provided. It fell into an awkward middle ground, too slow for enthusiasts and too expensive for buyers who just wanted basic transportation. Magazine reviews of the era were diplomatic but clear. They praised the Cougar's styling and interior quality, while strongly recommending buyers avoid the base engine. Road testers noted that the 289 turned the Cougar into an expensive disappointment, a car that promised more than it could deliver. Sales reflected this reality. Most Cougar buyers optioned up to larger engines, leaving the 289 models as dealer stock that moved slowly. Today, base engine Cougars are the forgotten variants of Mercury's most celebrated model. They represent the perils of building a performance luxury car around an economy engine, of trying to sell image without the substance to back it up. The Cougar deserved better, and most buyers were smart enough to give it the engines that matched its ambitions. Number 4, 1964 Dodge Dart GT with the 273 two-barrel and automatic. Dodge wanted a piece of the compact performance market in 1964, so they created the Dart GT. The problem was that Dodge didn't really commit to making it a genuine performance car, especially when customers ordered the 273 cubic inch V8 with its two-barrel carburetor and paired it with the optional automatic transmission. Instead of a sporty compact, buyers got a mildly warmed-over economy sedan with some chrome trim. The 273 two-barrel produced 180 horsepower, which sounds marginally respectable until you factor in the automatic transmission's power losses and the Dart's 3,000-pound curb weight. Quarter-mile times with this combination struggled to break 18 seconds. 0 to 60 took nearly 12 seconds, making the GT slower than many family sedans with V8 engines. This wasn't performance. This was window dressing on a grocery getter. The automatic transmission made everything worse. The two-speed torque flight was designed for economy and durability, not performance. It shifted lazily, held gears too long, and sapped power through its inefficient torque converter. Combined with economy-minded rear axle gears, the automatic-equipped 273 Dart GT felt sluggish and unresponsive. Mashing the throttle produced noise and effort, but little actual acceleration. The handling didn't help matters. The Dart suspension was tuned for ride comfort, not cornering ability. Push it hard through a turn, and the body rolled like a cargo ship in rough seas. The brakes were undersized drums at all four corners, providing stopping power that was marginal even for normal driving, let alone spirited backroad runs. The steering was slow and numb, giving the driver almost no feedback about what the front wheels were doing. Dodge marketed the GT package as sporty and exciting, but the reality with the base engine and automatic transmission was disappointingly mundane. The bucket seats looked nice, but offered minimal support. The interior trim tried to look upscale, but felt cheap to the touch. The dashboard layout was functional but boring. Everything about the Dart GT felt like it had been designed by committee, with each decision made to save money rather than enhance the driving experience. The real insult came from watching actual performance compacts of the era. While the automatic 273 Dart GT struggled to crack 18-second quarter miles, Plymouth's Barracuda with the 273 four-barrel could run mid-16s. And Pontiac's GTO made the Dart look like it was standing still. The GT existed in a strange middle ground. Too expensive to justify as basic transportation. Too slow to satisfy anyone who actually cared about performance. Sales reflected this identity crisis. The Dart GT attracted mainly older buyers who wanted something that looked vaguely sporty without actually being fast or exciting. Young enthusiasts ignored it completely, recognizing it for what it was: a pretender wearing performance badges it hadn't earned. Within a few years, Dodge would get serious about Dart performance with the GTS and eventually the legendary Demon and Dart Sport models. But the 64 GT with its base engine and automatic transmission remains a cautionary tale about half-hearted efforts in an era that demanded total commitment. Number 3, 1965, Buick Skylark Grand Sport with the CDR 300 two-speed automatic. Buick entered the muscle car game early with the 1965 Skylark Grand Sport. On paper, it had everything right: a 400 cubic inch V8 making 325 horsepower, proper suspension upgrades, and aggressive styling. But if you ordered it with the optional ST300 two-speed automatic transmission, which most buyers did, you got a muscle car that was fundamentally broken. That two-speed automatic was a relic from an earlier era, a transmission designed for relaxed cruising rather than performance driving. It had exactly two forward gears: a low gear that would rev the engine to redline and beyond, and a high gear that would lug the motor at low speeds. There was no middle ground, no smooth power delivery, just abrupt shifts and constant hunting for the right gear. Quarter-mile times suffered dramatically. While the rare 4-speed manual Grand Sport could run mid-14-second passes, the automatic version struggled to break 16 seconds. 0 to 60 took over 8 seconds, embarrassing for a car with 400 cubic inches under the hood. The transmission would hold first gear too long, causing the engine to scream unpleasantly, then shift to second too early, bogging the motor and killing all momentum. Driving one was an exercise in frustration. Accelerating from a stop meant waiting while the transmission decided when to shift, usually at exactly the wrong moment. Passing on the highway was an adventure in faith, hoping the transmission would kick down before you ran out of road. The car felt slow despite its power, because the transmission couldn't translate engine output into forward motion efficiently. Buick knew the two-speed automatic was inadequate. Internal testing had shown the performance penalty clearly, but tooling up for a 3-speed automatic would have required significant investment, and Buick's management believed Grand Sport buyers would accept the compromise. They were wrong. Magazine reviews savaged the automatic transmission, calling it the car's fatal flaw. Motor Trend and Car and Driver both noted that the ST300 ruined what was otherwise a competitive muscle car. Buyers complained vocally about the jerky shifts and poor acceleration. Sales suffered as word spread about the transmission issues. The styling made the letdown even more painful. The Grand Sport looked fantastic with its muscular proportions and subtle aggression, It promised effortless power and smooth performance. Instead, it delivered jerky shifts and compromised acceleration. The automatic transmission turned what could have been a legitimate muscle car contender into a disappointment that even Buick fans struggled to defend. The 4-speed manual Grand Sports were genuinely quick cars that could run with GTOs and Roadrunners. But the majority of buyers chose the automatic, either out of habit or because they lived in urban areas where manual transmissions were inconvenient. Those buyers got cars that looked muscular, but drove like they were perpetually stuck in the wrong gear. By 1967, Buick finally offered a proper 3-speed automatic in the Grand Sport, but the damage to the nameplate's reputation was done. The 65 and 66 ST 300 models became cautionary tales about the importance of proper transmission selection. Today, they're among the least desirable muscle cars of the era, reminders that having the right engine means nothing if you can't transfer that power to the rear wheels effectively. The 1960s muscle car era demanded total commitment to performance. The 2-speed automatic Grand Sport was a half measure that satisfied nobody. Number 2, 1969 American Motors AMX with the 290 cubic inch V8. American Motors finally built a legitimate sports car in 1969 with the AMX. It was a bold move for a struggling manufacturer, a genuine 2-seater with aggressive styling and serious performance potential. The AMX had everything going for it: dramatic looks, a stiff chassis, and a mission to compete with Corvettes and high-performance pony cars. But AMC's penny-pinching ways ensured they'd snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. The base AMX came with a 290 cubic inch V8 producing just 225 horsepower. 225 horsepower sounds respectable until you realize the AMX weighed 3,300 pounds and was supposed to be a performance halo car for a brand desperate to prove it could build exciting machines. Quarter-mile times for the 290 AMX languished in the high 15s, making it slower than family sedans wearing wood paneling. 0 to 60 took nearly 8 seconds. Top speed was barely over 110 miles per hour. These were numbers that would have been disappointing in a station wagon, let alone a 2-seat sports car marketed as AMC's answer to the Corvette. The AMX had everything else right. The proportions were fantastic, aggressive, and purposeful without being cartoonish. The interior was surprisingly well appointed with decent bucket seats and good instrumentation. The chassis was stiff and responsive with handling that promised genuine sports car dynamics. AMC's engineers had created a platform capable of real performance. Then the accountants forced them to install an underpowered economy engine as the base option, destroying the car's credibility before it even reached showrooms. AMC did offer larger engines, including a 390 cubic inch V8 that could genuinely perform with mid-14-second quarter miles and legitimate sports car dynamics. But positioning the 290 as the base engine created confusion in the market. Was the AMX a serious performance car or an economy sports car? The answer was neither and both, depending on which engine you ordered. This confused marketing alienated potential buyers who couldn't figure out what the car was supposed to be. The automotive press didn't help. Magazine reviews focused on the better-performing 390 models, but many mentioned the 290 engine's availability as a significant negative. Road testers questioned why AMC would offer such an underpowered option in what was supposed to be their performance halo car. Car and Driver called the base AMX a sports car with economy car power, which was damning with faint praise. The 290 AMX became a punchline in magazine comparison tests, the car that looked sporty but drove like a parts bin special. The gearing choices made things worse. AMC typically paired the 290 engine with economy-minded rear axle ratios designed to maximize fuel economy rather than acceleration. Combined with the modest power output, this meant the AMX never felt quick or exciting, just busy and strained. The engine would rev willingly but deliver little actual thrust, creating that familiar disconnect between sound and fury that plagued so many underpowered muscle cars of the era. Reliability wasn't even particularly good. The 290 engine was an older AMC design that had been stretched to its limits over the years. It was rough, noisy, and prone to oil consumption as it aged. The transmission options were limited and unexciting. Everything about the base AMX felt like AMC had compromised their sports car to save money, and it showed in every disappointing mile. The AMX deserved better. The styling, the platform, and the concept were all sound. AMC had proven they could design and build a proper two-seat sports car that looked exotic and handled well, but saddling the car with an inadequate base engine doomed it to failure in the marketplace. Sales were poor, and within 3 years, AMC abandoned the two-seat AMX concept entirely, reverting to a four-seat design that shared more components with the Javelin today. 290 AMX models are among the least collectible muscle cars of the era. Reminders that good bones mean nothing without the power to make them sing. AMC had proven they could build a proper sports car. They just couldn't afford to do it right. Number 1, 1966-68 Chevrolet Chevelle Malibu dressed as SS 396, the badge kit frauds. The worst muscle cars of the 1960s weren't always factory failures. Sometimes they were deliberate frauds. While Chevrolet built legitimate SS 396 Chevelles that were genuine performance machines, the era also saw countless Malibu models dressed up with SS badges, stripes, and trim pieces without the big block engine underneath. These weren't factory-built supersports. They were dealer add-ons and owner modifications. Badge-engineered pretenders that wore muscle car costumes over economy car hearts. The practice was simple and insidious. A buyer would come into a Chevrolet dealership wanting an SS 396, but unable or unwilling to pay for the real thing. The dealer would offer a solution: buy a base Malibu with a small block V8, then add SS badges, stripes, wheels, and trim pieces from the parts catalog. For a fraction of the cost of a genuine SS 396, the buyer got a car that looked tough from across the parking lot. Up close and on the street, the deception fell apart. These fake SS Chevelles typically came with two 83 or 307 cubic inch small blocks producing between 195 and 200 horsepower. Quarter-mile times were in the high 16s or low 17s. The same performance you get from a base Impala sedan or a well-optioned Chevy 2 Nova. But those cars didn't wear SS badges or sport aggressive hood stripes. They were honest about what they were. The badge kit Chevelle were lies with VIN numbers. The driving experience made the deception worse. The small block engines felt gutless and strained, constantly working hard to move the Chevelle's 3,300-pound mass. The transmissions shifted lethargically. The brakes were marginal. The handling was soft and disconnected. Everything about these cars reminded you that underneath the SS graphics was a basic intermediate sedan, pretending to be something it wasn't. Teenagers who scraped together their savings to buy these pretenders drove home thinking they'd gotten a deal on a muscle car. Instead, they'd bought image without substance, destined to be humiliated at every stoplight by actual performance cars. The aftermarket and dealer networks enabled this fraud enthusiastically. GM's parts catalog made it easy to order every SS badge, stripe, and trim piece separately. Dealers could boost their profits by selling appearance packages to customers who wanted the muscle car look without paying muscle car prices. Some dealers were honest about what they were selling, others weren't, allowing buyers to believe they were getting real SS 396s when they were actually buying dressed-up grocery getters. The clone culture extended beyond just dealers. Owners of base Chevelle would visit swap meets and parts stores, gradually transforming their cars into SS replicas. Some did it knowingly, fully aware they were building tributes rather than genuine muscle cars. Others convinced themselves their clones were just as good as the real thing, ignoring the massive performance gap between a 283 small block and a 396 big block at cruise nights and car shows. These clones mixed with genuine SS models, making it harder for enthusiasts to tell real from fake without checking VIN numbers and engine codes. The damage to the muscle car community was significant. Young buyers who'd been sold fake SS Chevelle felt betrayed when they discovered the truth. Real SS 396 owners resented the clones that diluted their cars' exclusivity and reputation. The practice taught a generation of enthusiasts to be skeptical of any muscle car's claimed credentials, to always verify VIN numbers and engine codes before believing performance claims. Today, the collector market has learned to distinguish real from fake. Genuine SS 396 Chevelle with proper documentation are worth serious money, while clone cars and badge kit frauds are worth barely more than base Malibus. That price gap tells you everything you need to know about how history has judged this cynical exercise in automotive deception. These badge kit Chevelle top our list because they weren't just bad muscle cars. They were betrayals of what muscle cars were supposed to represent. The 1960s performance era was built on a promise that regular people with modest means could buy genuinely fast cars, that cubic inches and horsepower numbers meant something real. The fake SS culture betrayed that promise completely. It took the muscle car's visual language and turned it into a costume, a disguise for cars that had no business wearing those clothes. In a decade defined by horsepower and honesty, these frauds stood for neither. The 1960s gave us legends we still worship today. But for every car that became an icon, there were others that fell short, that promised thunder and delivered disappointment. These 12 muscle cars remind us that even in the golden age, not every dream machine lived up to the dream. Some were hobbled by corporate compromise, others by inadequate engineering, and a few by outright deception. But they all share one thing. They wore the muscle car badge without earning the muscle car respect. History is written by the winners, but sometimes the losers teach us more. Which of these disappointments surprised you the most? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if you love stories from the era when American horsepower ruled the streets, both the legends and the letdowns, hit that subscribe button for more.